Morena, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to introduce myself to you, my name is Alan Chu, and I'm the Managing Director and Founder of Houston Technology Group. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this morning's session on cybersecurity. Your presence is truly appreciated here as we delve into the subject of cybersecurity, which of course is one of the most important aspects of modern business operations today. So after 48 years at the forefront of technology consultancy, Houston Technology is the longest established technology business in this region here. We have 35 professionals, I call them, spread across various locations. Our head office is on Clifton Road towards the right there. And we have people all the way from Wellington to Taranaki to Tauranga, Auckland, and of course, most of the people are located here in Hamilton. So after 38 years, we are committed to assisting clients in leveraging technology effectively. So an example of some of the technologies that we deal with would be cybersecurity, of course. There's AI, there's robotic process automation, there's customized software development, BI, and a number of other technologies. And having done this for 38 years, there are probably not very many technologies that we don't at least have some competency in today. We are active in both the SME market as well as the enterprise sector with clients ranging from smaller legal and accounting firms to enterprises like Transpower, Hamilton City Council is a good client of ours, and particularly overseas with a number of regional banks as well as government departments. So if you ask me to describe our business in one sentence, I would say that we focus on providing comprehensive technology and business solutions to enhance productivity, and the emphasis is on productivity and to solve business challenges. Of course, in today's environment, the landscape of cyber threats is constantly evolving, which poses significant threats and risks to businesses all over the country. Our mission at Houston Technology includes helping our clients to understand and then to mitigate these risks effectively. So I'm therefore very thrilled that we have as our keynote speaker for this session someone of the caliber of Richard Rayner, who is a cybersecurity specialist with over 20 years of experience. Richard has been an invaluable partner to Houston Technology Group, offering expert guidance and serving on our technical advisory board with great effectiveness. His expertise is very wide. Excuse me. It spans various domains, including IT security, digital management, and encryption algorithms. Richard is a genuine intellectual Swiss Army knife in that he holds degrees in law, in computer science, and business, demonstrating a multidisciplinary approach to technology and security. Additionally, his CISA, which is spelled CISA, and Richard, you confirm for me, that means Certified Information Systems Auditor? Right, okay. His CISA qualification ensures that or underscores his proficiency in IT audit and security. As if he's got time to do anything else, he currently is also pursuing further studies at Oxford University under the guidance of a renowned physicist specializing in quantum computation and with the name of a hard-to-pronounce name, Demi Fadugba, and I learned as a lady. So Richard therefore brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to today's discussion. So please join me in extending a warm welcome to Richard Rayner as he shares his insights with us on cybersecurity in the digital age. Now, before we do that, we are recording this session. If there anybody with any objection to that, let us know. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Richard.
Cool. That's right. You go too. Thank you.
I must say, yeah.
Cool. That's move that out of my way. That's a very kind intro. Thank you, Alan. Morning, everyone. Hello. Cool. So I tend to be more of a chat sort of person than a speak in front of people person. So if you have questions as we go along, can you hear me in the back? Yeah. Okay. All right. So as we go along, if you have questions, raise your hand, jump on in. Let's keep this alive. Because otherwise, I'll be speaking for 20 minutes, and my family tell me that gets monotonous. Thank you also to Alan and Tony and Houston Tech and the team for bringing us together this morning. Digital security is really important. It's important for all of our organizations, whether they're in the not-for-profit space or the commercial space or the government space. And so to bring us together, at least to consider this topic, it's important for us, our staff, our communities. So thank you guys. It's good. All right. So, right, there you go. Can't quite work PowerPoint yet. So what I'd like to achieve today is to support your guys' thinking in how you think about digital security. We're not going to be talking about specific solutions like the Microsoft Defender solution or how to configure this. What I'm hoping to achieve as you walk out of the room is that you're able to think about digital security, whether it's at a board level or a management level, and then be able to engage with your technical provider. If you're an IT manager or if you're in a technical space, I'm hoping that today's conversation will give you the tools to be able to speak up into senior management and be able to converse with them and help them understand as well. So that's kind of what we do today. We'll be talking a bit about strategy, which I love. Yeah, should we get into it? Cool. All right. By the way, this is the second time I've done this one today, so I'm a little bit more relaxed, which is why we videoed the second one and not the first one. Okay, so threat vectors. I'm going to jump straight into it. So a threat vector is the angle or the direction that something that could harm your organization can come from. Cool. And in today's world, which is increasingly chaotic, it can come from all sorts of space. So usually when we think of digital security, we're thinking about hackers, criminals, etc. But technology itself can open up crevices of vulnerability, as can our processes as they change. Our staff, even though they're great staff and they're well-intended, they can make mistakes, they can have a bad day, they can make a wrong decision, and we need to protect our organizations from those events too. Obviously, there's natural disasters. Criminality we'll speak mostly about, but that needs to stay on there, and nation states. So, for example, if Australia, and I'll use that as an example because it's fairly benign, if Australia decided to invade New Zealand or cause our economy harm in a certain market because there was trade wars, then there's a vulnerability to the people actually working in that industry in New Zealand. So the point I'm trying to get across is that nothing on planet Earth is particularly guaranteed. There's a lot of chaos going around, and our job is to understand that chaos and wrap protection and controls around it so that we're immune as much as we can be from those things happening. We can't control the sources, but we can control how they land with us. Does that ring true? Yeah, cool. All right. So some text on the slide. There are some trends in the threat vectors that have changed over the last 18 months or 2 years that make those threat vectors more poignant. So there's AI agents, which basically take information that was spread all around the planet Earth and the internet, etc., bring them into one space, into one mind, if you like, and allow them to act on that. There's distributed computing. When I first started in the IT industry several decades ago, everything was wrapped up within the organization. But now we have services and SaaS and all sorts of things going on. And to control across that is difficult. There's mobility. In fact, is anyone here over the age of 50? Yeah, put your hand up. Yeah, easily, cool. When I first started off in IT, there was this phrase, right? And it was, you're good at the computer. Do you guys remember that? And you'd have someone in the office that was good at the computer. And they used to sit down and do all the computer stuff. But now that's different in that everybody is good at the computer. We can all use it, and we do it off phones, off our friends' PCs. in airports, wherever. So mobility just spreads the risk and waters down and dilutes the controls we have. Business is speeding up because there's always pressure on business. We live in a capitalist environment. Love it or hate it, it is what it is. And that means the business continues to speeds up. And there's economic pressure, which means we're too busy to think about stuff that's not bothering us right here, right now. Quantum computing is coming around the corner, and that's going to speed up all the threats again. Stuff that used to take maybe several years to achieve will be able to happen in a few minutes, and stuff that could never be achieved will now be able to happen as well. And so on and so on. I won't go through them all, but the point being is that the chaos we're experiencing is getting more chaotic and playing off itself, and that's just the way of the world. Um, it is what it is. Okay. Okay, it's not just me being paranoid, although maybe it is too. So Lloyd's are the world's largest insurer, and if you buy insurance in New Zealand, then it's probably Lloyd's at the end of the day that's underwriting it. They're huge. They kind of invented insurance, if you haven't come across them yet. So in the last 12 months, they've stopped underwriting cyber insurance for nation state attacks. So and let's randomly pick an industry, let's say apples. If New Zealand Apple suffers a cyber attack from another nation that wants to promote their own apples, then Lloyd's won't insure that anymore. And they've issued a formal warning around generative AI increase in cyber attacks. So that's the activities that human beings would previously do, now being increasingly done by AI, better, faster. So these are the people who have to pay for attacks at the end of the day through insurance. So if they're signaling this, then it's probably worth us taking a listen to. By the way, this is I hope you're a little bit scared part of the presentation. We'll get on to happy stuff in a minute. This is my heads up. One of the problems I think we've got in New Zealand is we're at the top of the world, away from everybody else. And we kind of think, what's it? It's not going to happen to us, right? We're in little old Hamilton, etc. Last year, 17% of UK small, medium businesses had a cyber attack. And yeah, that's UK. It's in the EU. There's different things going on there. But the point being is that these were small, medium businesses. And the reason they're attacked is because the reward from attacking a small business is small, but there's a whole heap of them, and they typically don't invest in IT security. So they're easy pickings. So do you want to be successful at gaining $100 from 1,000 companies, or getting $200 from 3 companies? Exaggerating numbers, but you get the point. Who's heard of CrowdStrike? Hands up. Cool, cool. Enough of us. So CrowdStrike offers security software, and they keep a close eye on what's going on in the criminal space. And they have a tool that's a bit small there. But if you go to the website, it's on there. The adversaries, and you can put in the size of your business, the industry it's in, and where it is, New Zealand, and it'll tell you specifically who are the actors. It'll name them that are targeting your industry of your size in order to take you down or to extract money from you. So have a look at that. I ran a few on Saturday just out of curiosity. One of them came up with 8, and these were named players that they know of, and they know their practices and how they approach things. Another industry I tried, I forget which one it was now, came up with 0. So find out who they are and invest in them maybe. So yeah, so it's not just me being paranoid entirely. Okay. Right, so we often think in terms of cybersecurity impacts as just being financial. It's not just financial. Sure, it is. They extract money from us. They stop production sometimes, and that hits capital and it hits revenue. Also, there's a real disrupted focus. If you've ever been in an organization where they've had a significant attack, right from the boardroom through the whole organization, everyone's kind of a bit on edge, and there's lots of extra work to be done, which means you're not paying attention to customers, not paying attention to staff, to production, etc., and it puts you on the back foot for at least 2 weeks. So it damages organizations like that. There's a reputational issue as well, which isn't just the ego in the marketplace. I was chatting with a Russian venture capitalist the other week, which was an interesting conversation. Very good, very clued up, smart person. And he was saying essentially there's 3 things they look for when they buy a business. One is positive cash flow. And the second is an organization that's been running for at least 5 years. Have you got the stability and the place in the marketplace to stay where you are? And the third is reputation. And if you've had to contact your customers because you've been attacked and you've shared their data, if you've wound up in the papers, then that affects your reputation and they're either less likely to buy you or the value they'll place on your organization is less. So for anyone looking to sell a business in the next 5 or 10 years, um, weekly sales meeting, um, yeah, bear in mind it has real impact to business owners as well. It's super important. And business continuity. Our staff, their livelihoods are dependent on those running good businesses. Our suppliers are dependent on our custom, and so on and so forth. It's not just what's in the balance sheet. Okay. Sorry, 3 degrees and can't operate Microsoft PowerPoint. There we are. So what is the best way forward? What I always say to people is try and stay away from, despite all what we've talked about, try and stay away from the panic, from the gut reaction, from the knee jerk, because all you'll do is you'll respond in a superstitious way where you have an unknown thing and then you're doing something that you hope will change or fix the unknown thing and you haven't done the link between the two. And that leads to no good. So what I propose people do is they start a continuous improvement journey regarding digital security. The first thing to do is analyze, take stock of your systems, of your processes, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk about this in a minute. And then rank what's the most vulnerable and do basically a cost benefit analysis and then just start checking through those as you're able to. Fire a plan, implement, measure, and spin round again. It's not a set and forget. It used to be an annual sort of cycle. I'd now suggest maybe it's a 6-monthly cycle, depending on your business, maybe. Depending on your business. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Actually, can I come? I want to answer that question really specifically in about 3 slides. Can I? Yep. Is that cool? It's the right question. Yeah, it's the right question. And it depends is the bit I want to get to. Yeah. Um, so, so what I'd like to do now is kind of pause thinking about technology, just for a minute, and think about strategy and business, because when we get that sorted, we can then think about digital security in that context. So this is a high-level process that will help you think about where to place digital security in your organization. So the first thing is what is your organization's strategic goals? What are the 3 things that you're betting money on to lead you to success? So there's a couple of examples to flesh this out. For McDonald's, it's buildings, burgers, and bathrooms. They invest in real estate. If you buy a cheeseburger here in Hamilton, it's the same as if you buy it in New York or in Taupo or London or wherever. And the third is bathrooms. Again, apart from Taupo, I think, they pride themselves on having really clean bathrooms. So again, Taupo is just, don't even go there. But the idea is that they have attractive buildings in the right space, and people go there to use the bathroom and then know they're always welcome to, and therefore they buy burgers. So it becomes a bit of a home sort of place for them, away from home. So that's their strategic play. Spotify. Is anyone here on Spotify? Surely everybody is. Anybody not on Spotify? Okay. Yeah. feel free to see me after. So Spotify's strategy is that they understand everybody on planet Earth has different listening tastes. No one's really the same, and they have vast amounts of data on how people listen and how people like the people that are listening also listen. And so that's what they basically put all their strength behind. Tesla are interesting. One of the reasons Tesla, I think, have become so successful, apart from the great cars, is you don't have to go to a car yard and haggle. You just turn up, you buy it online, and there's a thing of their website there. You pay the fixed price, and you get it. It's just simple. And those people who are anxious about engaging with a car sales guy just can skip all of that. Movenpick have quality and indulgence, whether it's their ice creams or their hotels. You're going to have a real quality experience. You're going to be indulged. You'll pay for it, but you'll receive something that's extraordinary. Has anyone ever stayed at a Movenpick hotel? You're missing out. You're missing out. I would encourage you to, if you get the opportunity to. Um, so a couple of slides there. So this one at the bottom, the colourful one from Spotify, the one that said, "Dear person," this was a billboard. "Dear person in LA who listened to Forever Alone playlist for 4 hours on Valentine's Day, are you okay?" So the point they're getting across is we know you and we can provide you the sort of music you want. So have a think for your own organisation. What are the 2 or 3, maybe 4 things that you back yourself on as being the best at and will take you to success? Okay. This, has anyone seen this diagram before? I think maybe a bunch of you will have. Yeah. So this is a value chain analysis. Long story short, if it's imagine we're making wooden chairs, right? Trees come in at one end, they get milled, shaped, varnished, who knows, whatever, and then at the other end, chairs come out. And what the customers value is our ability to turn a bit of wood into a chair. That's this colourful bit on the bottom. That's called our value chain because that's where we add value to the wood. At the top are all of the support activities that have to happen in an organization in order for this part to occur. So this is your HR, your finance, legal, general IT, all that sort of stuff there. If the things that we talked about in the previous slide, which were your the things you're betting on, your strategic goals, where you're placing your money, if they exist, if they're critically dependent on IT and the security of the data, then you need to have IT security deep within your organization. You need to have at least the capability to engage in that thought and be able to govern how secure your your organization is, even if you don't do it yourself, even if you outsource the technical skills, that needs to be a conversation that you're adept at having at the boardroom and senior management. If it's not, if you're like a McDonald's sort of operation where you could lose data, privacy concerns put aside, and still keep running, then you can just do something much simpler and treat digital security in a less constrained way or in a normal way. If it's down here, then it really does need to be heightened because the existence and the sustainability of your business depends on it. Does that make sense to people? Cool. Okay. All right. So then, so you might be getting an idea at the moment of kind of your organization and what the threats could be or the impact of those threats could be. If you're in the first group where your organization is deeply dependent on IT security and security of data and security of processing, etc., then you need to be looking at IT security kind of at the ISO level. Or if you're engaging with government and offering digital services to government, you need to be at the ISO 27 level. The way you do that initially is you have a nice SARCA audit, which goes through literally thousands of audit points. And then that gives you a big matrix of all the things that you're strong on, that you're weak on, and then you can rank them and start working through them. It's quite involved, but it really does secure your business. If, however, your business isn't in that space and maybe making wooden chairs, that would be a great example, then you can do what's called an essential 8 analysis, and that keeps your general IT safe and secure and running. It's a lot simpler, it's a lot cheaper, and it's really pragmatic. It's weakness here, therefore you should do this thing. And it's closely tied with the IT providers like Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and they already pre-package a lot of their stuff to be Essentials 8 compliant, so you get out of the box. So again, if you are, say, maybe an LIC or a bank or an insurance company, you're looking at the more detailed. If you're making wooden chairs, something that's much more physical, then you can go with Essential 8. In any situation, Essential 8 is a great way to start, just to open it up if it's brand new for you. I wanted to raise a few red herrings which get discussed around the market. And I do this just because it annoys me and it's a bit of a bugbear and I've got the opportunity to rant. The first is NIST. Some organizations will attempt to sell you NIST as the fix-all. It's not the fix-all. What NIST will do is say, here are your business processes. here are the technologies that it's dependent on, and then here's how to know if you've been breached. And that's really important to do. That's part of a mature framework, but by itself, it's not enough. There's lots of other things that need to be considered. So if anyone says NIST will steer clean, push back and say, no, what else? The other one is penetration testing, or pen testing. Again, it's really good and you should do it, but it only covers one part of digital security. Um, for example, I was speaking with someone earlier on today, and they said, oh yeah, we've done NIST and pen testing. And I said, oh, very good. So what happens if the person who manages the logs for your financial system is also maybe the CFO or a senior financial manager? All of a sudden, you've got the auditing and the person accountable for the performance being the same person. You've got separation of powers, and there's an opportunity for bad things to happen in that space. And that's just one example. There's lots of them. So yeah, so that's why we need to think properly about these things. The other thing that irritates me is when people say, buy this one tool, and this one tool will solve all your security problems. If you're a very small business and you'll say you're on Microsoft 365, I'd say that's maybe an exception to the rule because so much of what they provide is covered by that for a simple business. If you're anything less, so more than maybe 20 or 30 people in an organization, then you've probably got deeper things you need to cover as well. Have people heard vendors try and sell NIST or pen testing as the be all and end all? No? Okay, you got it, yeah. All right, so let's talk about some tools. And this is about as technical as I get. The things we need to protect in large are endpoints, anything with a pixel on it. So your phones, your laptops, servers, etc. Some servers. And it's all about who can access those. Then we need to protect identity and authentication. So just because I say I'm Richard and I'm accessing your system doesn't really mean I'm Richard. How do we know we know we know? So we need to protect that. And then once people have authenticated and they're in the system, what do we even allow them to do? If they've got access to your ERP or your finances, can you let them download a spreadsheet onto their laptop? Because then you're extracting data. And if you can, what can they do with it once it's on their laptop? Can they save it to Dropbox? Can they email it home to their home email address to work at the weekend, which is then hacked by it, and so on and so on and so on. Policy controls, cover that. Encryption, I'm a big fan of encryption. Basically, it means if data is stolen, nobody can open it up. It's like having all your data in an envelope that nobody can open. With quantum computing coming along soon, expect that to be blown right open. Encryption depends on the fact that it takes an extremely long amount of time mathematically to work through the problem to decrypt. With quantum computing, years turns into minutes and seconds. Good news is Microsoft and Google, I think Google, and now I've got quantum compliant encryption. So mathematically, it actually can't be unencrypted through quantum, which is good. So again, if you're with one of the major players, that's fantastic. And backup and recovery. So now we're having a chat earlier on today about this. Loads of people back up, but they've never done a recovery test. Just because you're backing up, can you recover? And how long does it take? If it takes a day to recover your data, can your business actually hold its breath for a day while it waits for that data? Or do you need to put something else in place in the interim? Is anybody here not on Google or not on Microsoft 365? Cool. What space are you hanging out in? Okay, cool. So yeah, so you might like to consider if there are any security issues around it. I ran for a little bit about Google, so I do a little bit with Google, a little bit here and there, and their security is really good. So they, first of all, they bake it into the silicon. So Google, being Google, make their own servers. Well done them. And they bake security into the chips themselves, into the silicon. So when a Google server starts up, and this is publicly known information, when it starts up, it does a check on itself, on its operating system, on its hardware, and on any data that's already on there. And then it gives it a tick. When that's done, it then does a check on any data that's loaded into the server. Then when that's done, and only when that's done and it's all cleared, it's allowed to join the network. And the reason that's in a data center, and the reason that's so secure is it's all done in hardware. So you can't go in and put a virus in there because it's in the silicon. And then that stacks up right through their user management, through their networks, they're in the backbone of the internet. And until something hits your screen, it's encrypted and secured the whole way. So that's the sort of level that they're playing at. Microsoft are the same. They've got some pretty heavy duty security going on. I heard the figure that they spend annually, and it's mind blowing on security. So one of the benefits of being with Microsoft is you get all of that expertise in as well for free. CrowdStrike take a slightly different angle. So CrowdStrike focus a lot on if you like the criminal or the malignant element, and they've recognized that the criminals work with data, with automation, strategy, and then human beings at the top, and they figured that's the best way for them to do their stuff. So CrowdStrike have replicated that as good guys, and so there's hundreds of CrowdStrike people around the world. What they do is they run the automation, the AI, etc. When they start to spot things going wrong, say in San Francisco or in Beijing or wherever, then it'll spread throughout all their CrowdStrike customers and say, hey, you're also running this version of this software on this system. We think we found something and we'll block this up straight away. So, which is cool. So loads of different offerings, but again, it's all about finding the right mixture that gives you that security and fit your budget. Confused? No, good, good. So the other thing I think is really important is culture. There's a phrase we have in IT, which is pebcock, which means the problem exists between the chair and the keyboard. That's the biggest security weakness, and that includes me as well, to be fair. So culture is super important, and it's right from the board down to the person that comes in and waters the plant. There are organizations that have policy in place that if you breach their IT or their security, they get instant dismissal, whether you're the CEO or the plant waterer, and these are big multinational organizations. It's important to have a no blame culture. So if you get something come in and you click on it by mistake and you go, stink, I shouldn't have. No blame culture says, come and tell IT straight away, because that's much more preferable than you hiding it and it being allowed to fester in our systems. There's a danger bleed between work and home. If you're using the same password for Facebook as you use, say, for Zero at work, and then your Facebook password gets breached, like happened with TikTok last week. So it does happen. And then they go, Richard has his Facebook account. He also works at this company here. We know the email address for this company, etc., etc. They can bleed across. So that means that 2FA is really important, having 2FA in all your systems. I know it's a pain. It's much less of a pain than being hacked. Single sign-on has some pros and cons. So single sign-on means if I log in one place, that authenticates it around everywhere else, which is really good because it keeps everything in a trusted space. But it's bad because if that single sign-on gets hacked, then everything gets hacked. So you've got to weigh that up. So I would only myself trust single sign-on from the big players, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons. Encrypt absolutely everything. It's just a no-brainer. And the last point I've got here is remembering passwords. The biggest barrier to all digital security is people not wanting to remember a different password for every system. That's the big one. So what I say is, don't remember a password, remember a formula. So for example, it might be a few letters from the name of the person you're sitting next to at work, or your boss maybe, then a secret phrase that you have, and then at the end, a phrase which describes the system you're working on. So it might be zero spelled backwards if it's a zero. And that means whenever you're using a different system, you've got a different password for it, but you don't have to remember it. You just go, what's the formula? Yep, and you put it in. And that's a good step in the right direction. You still need 2FA. Yes, as definitely as a part of the solution. But even they got hacked. Who was it? Yeah, LastPass got yeah. Yeah, yeah. One of the great things about that is they can create you really complex, unique passwords for every system. So that in itself is really good. Nothing's entirely safe. Yeah, but yeah, yes, I do. So just before I go on to the next part, there's a question just before around what are the things to look for, when we do audits, and that is again, it comes down to the sorts of organisation you are. If it's detailed, you want to be looking at the management and the separation of powers between board and management, plus the procurement and development of software. So if you, sure, yeah. Uh, if you got hacked, how would you know? If you, yeah. So that's the question you need to maybe talk with your IT manager or your IT provider with, because they'll be able to go, well, you should get a report from so and so, and that report would have been generated from so and so, and we backtrack along that chain. So if you can keep asking that question of your IT provider until they can satisfy you with a non-technical answer, then that'll be it. Like I said, an ISACA audit has thousands of audit points. Um, how do you know you've been hacked? Is everybody protected from doing wrong things? And how do you know the people that you're trusting to provide you with software or hardware? How do you know they're trustworthy? You've got to, yeah, uh, correct. You can never be sure, but there are a bunch of things you can put in place um, to give you more sense of security. Yeah, yeah. A lot of it comes down to relationship. If you work with an organization, like your accountant or your lawyer, sure, you can never be sure, but you learn to trust them and you learn to work with them and take their advice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So final slides here. I thought I'd leave some kind of where to go from here for people. So first of all, identify your strategic goals because they determine your context. And out of that, go, well, what is at risk? If we got hacked, what would happen to our business? Doesn't matter how you get hacked or the technology, just if you got hacked, or if you lost data, or you had data or IP stolen. And then with that thought, go and have a chat with Tony or the guys and say, look, here's our business. Here's the impact of a plan. How do we go from here? How do we shape this up? What's the right priority of things to deal with? And then also getting digital security embedded in the culture. No sharing passwords. Everyone has a different password. If anything goes wrong, come and tell your manager or IT. Some organizations have a chocolate fish policy where if you go along and you say, I've just clicked on something, they give you a chocolate fish as a thank you for letting them know. So it's less of a, I've done something wrong. Cool. Okay, that's a lot of me ranting. Sorry. Questions, thoughts, comments, disagreements?
What are your thoughts on using a YubiKey security key to add in further layer of security?
Yeah. You want to balance balance off with the cost and the disruption of using that, but yeah,
It's really cheap.
yeah, yeah.
And does not disrupt the workflow at all.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that would cover, if you like, a lot of the criminal or the technical security, but it wouldn't cover some of the more human sort of stuff. But yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Have you used them yourself much? Cool.
All the time.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Anyone from a law practice? Ah, fantastic. Um, what are some of the implications around privacy data? Because I know the New Zealand Law Society is keen on making sure that law firms work well. Have they been discussing digital security much at all, or raise it? Cool.
I mean, I'm from a part of a small law firm, just my wife
Okay. Yeah.
and unlike most people in this room, the less time I spend in front of the screen, the better.
Yeah.
And I've made some half-hearted attempts over the last couple of years to just to learn more about it myself. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons I'm here.
Good.
To try and rekindle some enthusiasm about it.
Yeah.
But we, the fact is that we're small, and we like to think that we are open and honest with each other and
Yep.
don't click on things we shouldn't click.
Yeah.
I think that's our greatest protection.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
just to try and get some enthusiasm and energy to do something about
Yeah.
it, which I know has to be done.
Yeah. Are you in the Microsoft platform or are you using here? Okay, cool. So
one thing I've learned from you is that there's something sitting already on my screen that I can utilise a great deal.
yeah, there is. There's a whole bunch, and Steve and the guys will be able to maybe step you through this. There's a bunch of configuration you can do in a Microsoft space to fine tune your security. And it's often, like you mentioned before, it's often a balance between how does that make working life awkward, and how much does it secure us, and they'll be able to talk you through that. But yeah, there's a bunch that's already wrapped up into that.
I hate the dependence because I don't like money.
Yeah,
And it's a necessity. But just on an author, this is really scary.
Mm.
On the scary, the law firm in Wellington, which got hacked, and it was through their provider being hacked.
yeah,
And
yeah,
even worse, the provider didn't tell the law firm. It was only an anonymous tip to the law firm a couple of months
yeah,
later. And it came out, and I thought, wow, that's just
yeah,
so scary.
yeah, yeah, and that's yeah, your point before about relationship is really good. Yep, it's risk is always an element. Is risk is the unknown, maybe happening, and the more we can know, then the risk goes down. Yeah, 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 far away.
How would you protect yourself from remote attacks, for example, attacks that target operating system?
At me as a person, sorry, at the operating system on my PC that I'm running.
On your PC.
Yeah, cool. So I would first start. I'd get Defender, Microsoft Defender up and running. Um, this probably steps more into Tony's technical space than mine, but I want to get it, and Tony can tell me when to go wrong. So Microsoft Defender, and get it configured properly. Intune is really good. Intune, Intune. Yep. So that's also in the Microsoft universe, and that's good. So if something goes wrong, you can press a button and it just bricks the machine until you can control it, or you can reset it again. So those are great controls. Um, Depending on the sort of information, well, yeah, everything should be encrypted on your laptop. If your operating system goes down, who cares? It's really the data. So if somebody was to destroy my operating system, my laptop, doesn't matter, I'll get a new laptop. It's the data that's really critical. And people capturing your identity and pretending to be you. So in the law firm example, if someone could send emails pretending to be you, posing as you, that'd be terrible. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. Yeah.
So that it's key not to store important data on people's devices.
Yeah. 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 Sometimes it can't be helped. You're right. Sometimes it can't be helped, so encrypt it.
But OneDrive or something like that would be a guaranteed way of making sure you got enough.
I don't like the word guaranteed, but definitely a much stronger position to be in. Yeah, 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 yeah. So which is why this is a multi-factor thing going. We need the technology, the identity, the people. It all comes into play. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Probably say don't use OneDrive because you're guaranteed backup. You know,
Mm.
save it on your C drive on your PC.
Yeah.
Have a copy on your OneDrive or something. Another one which is a cloud backup of your laptop.
Yeah, yeah,
If you didn't put it within you, then you lost it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Different kinds of cloud tools to make sure the backup is efficient or good.
Yeah, and just is a gap between your local device and your backup.
Yeah.
And that do you have control over your ability to restore the data, or are you relying on somebody else?
Yep. And also got another question about AI tools or digital tools.
yeah,
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for your time. And now it's very common for us, for individuals or companies to use large learning models,
yeah,
Copilots, ChatGPT.
yeah.
During we using these tools, it's very hard. I think it's not good to to trust the platform totally.
Yeah.
Could you give some advice about if we use them to
Yep.
do some analysis,
Yeah.
how to avoid some potential attacks about that?
Yeah. And that's a great example. So Samsung last year banned ChatGPT because people were uploading their code and then using AI to complete the code, and then that code got made public. So yeah, good example. There are systems around the guys can point you to which can create though using ChatGPT, it puts it in a private instance. And so if you upload data to it, it stays in your own domain. So there are software solutions for that. That can be done. I want to pick on Matthew White because he's a smart guy. Oh,
I think during we use this platform
Yep.
for our course, you give us for individuals.
yeah, for individuals.
Yeah, individual, if we use
Yeah,
this tools to do some analysis or do some other things,
Yeah.
do you give some practical advice about
Yeah.
how to avoid some
Yep.
attack about others or even do by the platform?
No, I don't know. If I'm honest, I would say just be conscious of how you engage and how you use them. Careful with the information you upload. Not that I think Microsoft or Google would use that maliciously themselves, but somebody else could do engage AI, and AI could use that information it's gained from you. That's possible. And also, maybe I'm cynical, but today we live with safe governments, and we trust our governments. But in 20 years' time, have we still got the same governmental structure in place? And we want to make sure that our actions today don't create a vulnerability for the future. Would be my comment. Yeah. Yeah. So just one more, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. My understanding is that it's kind of 4.5 years away from being consumable to the public, albeit expensively, but still consumable. The problems they're getting are around error checking. I'm top of my head in here. So around error checking. So for every calculation, because it's so physical and so dependent on physical architecture, that's still being ironed out, the wrinkles. So they're predicting 5 years away, I think it's latest. Yeah, I'm seeing it kind of coming in like this, and my guess is that it'll be 5 years this year. Next year they might go 3.5. I think it'll accelerate, but who knows? The big players are getting stuck in, and now we've got AI to help us. Does that help? Yeah.
Can I just stand up and share one viewpoint with you, which is quite an important one. I get asked all the time about ChatGPT and whether they're safe to be used. Of course, the common wisdom is that ChatGPT is not safe, and therefore you don't use it. Or you go to something like Copilot, where your data is contained within your tenancy, which makes it a lot safer. So I hold a contrary view to that with ChatGPT. And the reason is this. So the problem that you have with ChatGPT is that all the things you put into the prompt goes out into the public domain. And so if you say, draft me a letter to sack Rodney, okay? Rodney then goes to the web and say, oh, somebody's talking about sacking me. So that is the whole idea about ChatGPT being unsafe. Now, there are two things that I think about. Firstly, ChatGPT relies on a huge database of information. It has scraped virtually every piece of information that ever existed from the web. So you're thinking of trillions of pages of information. The information that me, as a user in New Zealand, that adds to that database must be very, very minuscule. So the chance of somebody, not just somebody accessing that data, but somebody with interest in that piece of data about sacking Rodney, coming across that piece of data would be very, very low. Not nil, and that's the problem. It's so low that you have to balance between the benefit of using it and the benefit or the risk of using it. Okay, so I think that considering comes into mind. Secondly, if you use it judiciously, so if I want to sack somebody, I don't sack Rodney. I say I sack John Doe. All right, that immediately mitigates that problem for you. So my point is this: if you're thinking of not using ChatGPT because there's a huge security risk for you, as in everything in business, you've got to balance risk with benefit. The benefit of using ChatGPT is immense. I have been using it for about a year now, and it's just scratching the surface. It's already transformed my life. So I encourage you to use ChatGPT where you can. Be mindful of what I just said about other people being able to see what you do. The risk of that is very low, but if you were to be careful with how you word it, that risk almost disappears. Okay, thank you.
That's probably enough for me.
Enough from you? Okay. So the bit that falls to me is to say thank you to Richard. One of the things in business is having external brains that you can tap on that will bring different perspectives and different sets of thinking. So at Houston, we use Richard. He leads our technical advisory board, but he just brings an external perspective into what we're doing and just question stuff. So he's a great resource. So from a personal perspective, having some form of framework or measurement system that you can score your security against, or whatever you're doing, but any sort of scorecard you can score yourself against, and then come back in a year's time and say, how am I actually doing, is quite good. There is a bunch of them out there. Does anyone in the room make nuclear missiles or space systems? No, okay. So if you're a small to medium business, it's often good to have something that you can understand and relate to. And if you have to go to a board, being able to say, look, this is the stuff. So for our internal cybersecurity, we use what they call Essential 8. It's the Australian standard. The New Zealand government haven't got a standard, so we've chosen the Australian one. And basically it's got 8 quadrants, if you like. They're probably not a quadrant if there's 8 of them, but 8 segments, and you get a score from 0 to 3 in each one. 0, you're not doing anything. 3, you're doing everything that you possibly can. And it's quite a good way to understand where you're at. And then you can, if you get this under control, then you can go and look at the bigger, harder stuff. If you're in things like Microsoft or Google, most of our clients are in Microsoft. So Microsoft Australia have published a whole heap of resource that we can just go and grab and say, this is how you get a customer from a 1 to a 3, and it's all figured out. So that's quite a cool way of doing it. We do those reviews for customers. We do it more from asking the questions and being a little bit of the provocateur to bring that outside perspective. But they're an easy way to get started on cybersecurity. Okay. But thanks all for coming today. Feel free to stick around and ask Richard hard probing questions, and enjoy your week.